Hey everyone, Clawland here. You're watching Left Hand Reviews, and this is a much delayed episode 42 where we're going to take a look at Victory Point Games Old World, New World. Old World, New World plays in about 20 to 30 minutes, was developed by Mr. Aaron Smith, and can accommodate anywhere from 2 to 4 players. In Old World, New World, players are going to be placing terrain cards down in a large grid and attempting to move their pieces from one side to the other in order to score. But in the meantime, other players will be using that same space to not only try to move their pieces from one side to the other, but trying to sabotage yours at the same time. There's also some special cards thrown in there to really keep you on your toes. So let's take a look at Old World, New World, what comes in the box. I'm going to teach you how to play this relatively simple game, and I'll tell you what I think about it. Let's take a look at what you get in the box with Old World, New World. It's in Victory Point Games kind of new style with a nice standard box size with a sleeve over it. Definitely helps keep the cost down. Okay, on the back of the sleeve, you do just have some information about the game, just like you would on any other game box. Now let's open this up. First thing you're going to notice, of course, is a rule book. Now, the rule book quality is very, very good. I mean, it's a super, super thick cardstock, and then you just have a slightly lesser thickness paper, but definitely higher quality than your standard 20-pound paper that you have at your home and your printer. It's well written. There's plenty of diagrams and pictures. I mean, this is excellent. I'm really glad that they've done such a great job with this. It's very easy to learn. It helps that this game is relatively simple in the rule set. So you're going to have a good size stack of these square cards. I don't know if these are exactly the same size as those in Among the Stars and similar games, but I got to think they probably are, or at least darn close to it. But a nice fat stack of cards. These are your terrain cards. Then you're going to have pieces for all the different players, up to 4 players. You have red, blue, yellow, and green. Gonna have a couple native counters. These are kind of NPCs in the game. And then finally, you have your border pieces that you use to set up the board. The grid is going to end up being a 6x6 grid. And so basically what you're going to do is take these pieces and you connect the colors on the back side together, and it's going to create a big square board, which I'll do here in just a second. And then you just have some information about Victory Point Games and stuff like that. Now it's important to note that, or just worth noting, that these are, I think, real wood. It's not that chipboard, I don't believe, and these are laser cut by Victory Point Games. So you have a little bit of a smoky smell with them. Nothing that would, trigger your allergies, I wouldn't think. But I mean, I just say that because it's a very, very thick. I mean, it definitely feels like wood. And also, because they use that laser cutting, the edges of the pieces just need to be wiped off to get any soot that got left on by that laser cutting process. But they do include a little napkin for you to do that. It takes all of 3 seconds while you're punching everything out. So just something worth noting. Again, that laser cutting is definitely helping them keep costs down and be able to use such great, heavy, thick materials too, which is really cool. All right, so let me set up a game. I'll show you how to play Old World, New World. Here's your typical setup for a game of Old World, New World. Each player is going to take one side of the board. They're going to have their 6 playing pieces along with 5 cards that each player starts off with. You have your shuffled deck of terrain cards right here, along with the 2 native tokens as well, ready to be played. So you're going to be playing cards in the grid to fill it up. Now, each card is divided into 4 separate sections. So in theory, this is really going to be a finished board of 12 by 12 little terrain sections. There are 3 types of terrain on the cards, or there can be up to 3 different types of terrain on the cards. You have your plains, which are that green color. You have your oceans, which are the blue. And then you also have mountains, which are that orange color. In addition, on any of the terrain spaces, you may either see a camp symbol, which you can see here on the green, or you may see a port symbol on the oceans. So on your turn, you can do one of 2 different things. You can either discard cards, or you can play cards. To discard cards, you simply just take any number of cards from your hand that you wish to discard them, and then draw back up to your 5-card hand limit, and that's the end of your turn. If you choose to play cards, then you're going to play 2 and exactly 2 cards from your hand. To play a card from your hand, you either place a terrain card onto the grid here, or you can burn a card from your hand. And the reason for burning cards will be apparent in just a second. But first, let's go over placement of the cards. You can place the cards anywhere you want on an open grid space. So you can start by putting it here, 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 assuming that this is within the grid, of course, anywhere you want. Now, the row here, for this player, the very first row of the terrain symbols, so this very first row here will be that player's home row, and likewise, this row here will be this player's home row. So what you'll do is you'll place a card, and that would be one of your 2 card actions on your turn. You then take another card from your hand, and if you wanted to place a second card, you can do that, because like I keep saying, you can place up to 2 cards. Again, you can put it here, you can put it here, you can put it over here, you can put it over here, wherever you want. Okay? Simple as that. Now, the second thing that you can do is take actions with your cards by burning them. So what you want to do is get your playing pieces out onto the board, because you're going to score points by moving your pieces from one side of the board to the opposite side. In order to get pieces out on the board, you need to burn cards. When you burn a card, you have 3 different actions that you can take. It allows you to deploy more units, to move your units, or to convert those units to the other type of unit. That'll make more sense when we go over it here in just a second. So in order to deploy a unit, you must burn a card from your hand that has a port symbol or a camp symbol, depending on which unit you'd like to deploy. Of course, if you want to deploy a ship, which you can see here, you need to burn a card with a port symbol. If you want to deploy a soldier, which are on the opposite side of the token, you must burn a card with a camp symbol. So I just laid out a couple cards here to make it make more sense. So in order to deploy, let's say I want to deploy a soldier, and I have this card in my hand. I'm going to burn this card because it has a camp symbol on it. So I'm going to burn it to the discard pile. I'm going to take one of my soldiers, and I can place my soldier on any plains space on my home row. If you remember, this is my home row here. So I can either place this soldier in this space here or this space here. So I may place him there. And that is, again, the end of one of my 2 card actions that I get each turn. And you can do those actions in any order and any combination as you want. So you could play a terrain card and then deploy a unit. You could deploy 2 units. You could deploy or place 2 terrain cards. You can convert 2 units. You can move 2 units. You can, and any combination thereof. Now, if you want to move one of your tokens, you need to, again, burn a card that contains the either port or camp symbol corresponding to the type of token that you want to move. So if I want to move my soldiers, I need to burn a card with a camp symbol on it, in the same way that I had to burn one to deploy. So I would burn this card here with a camp symbol, and I can move my soldier token like that. Now, the way that the tokens move is just like a rook in chess. They can move orthogonally as many spaces as you want, but they are limited by the terrain, of course. So, for example, if I had this set up like so, let's rewind, say I was still there. I can move this character by burning a card with a camp symbol as far as I wanted along the plane. So you'd have to stop there because he's going to hit the ocean. Or I could stop him there or anywhere I want, but I can move as far as I want. Now, if you happen to hit a space or end your movement on a space with a camp symbol in the case of soldiers, or if you're moving a boat, ending the boat movement on a port space, you immediately get to take a free move action. So, meaning, if I started here, burn a card to move, I can move my soldier all the way here, end his movement. Since I'm ending on a port space, I get a free move, so I can keep moving him now this way. So that is, in other words, a key strategy to the game is putting these camp reports onto corners so you can chain together several moves in a row and change directions. If on your turn you happen to play a terrain card down on your home row and it contains a symbol of a type that you can deploy, so a camp or a port symbol, you may immediately for free deploy a unit of that type. And because they are now on a symbol of their type, they immediately get a free move action. So again, it's in your best interest generally to play cards with port symbols or camp symbols onto your home row, because that immediately lets you get those units out quick and early into the game. So we've talked about moving, we've talked about deploying. Let me tell you about the third action that you can take, and that is called converting. Now, converting allows you to basically take your unit and flip it over to its opposite side to turn it into the other type of unit, so you can keep moving along the board. So for example, let's say my soldier was sitting here. I could then place a ocean card here, and with my first action, and with my second action, I can convert this to a boat. The reason I can do that is you must have a unit adjacent to the opposite type of symbol. So if I have a soldier, he has to be placed adjacent to or be directly adjacent to a port. If I have a boat, it needs to be placed directly adjacent to a camp symbol. And so I will take an action to flip him over to his boat side and place him onto that port symbol in this case. And because he's ending his movement or ending the turn on a port symbol, being a boat, he immediately gets a free move action. So I could then move him here, or move him here, and again I'm ending on another port, so I can change direction and move there. So in order to get across the board, you're generally going to be having to move soldiers across the plains, convert them to a boat, and then maybe convert back again and back and forth, because as you're playing, each player is going to be placing these cards trying to screw up the movement of the other players. So if I had a long green stretch here, my opponent may try to play a card like this. So let's assume I was here, they'll play that card there. Now, there's no way that I can convert my soldier to a boat here because there's no port symbol directly adjacent to it. So that's a good screwage move. So as you can see, this is going to be a very, very competitive head-to-head type game, and it gets even more hectic when you have more than two players playing. And eventually this board is going to start getting filled up, and once you're able to move one of your units to the other side of the board, then you're going to score a point. The catch is you have to move them out of one of the spaces where you see these gold arrows. When you move one of your units outside one of the arrows, you're going to place them onto the arrow, and not only does that mean you can no longer use that particular space to score a point, but you've also just reduced your pool of available units by 1. So now if that was my first point, I now only have 5 units that I can use, and I can probably no longer use that same path again to get there because that space is now used up. I'm going to have to try to get them out here or any of the other spaces on that side of the board. And basically the game is going to end when a player, the first player to get to 3 points. Now, we're not done just yet because you have a lot of other cards in here that are going to really, really make your opponents angry. So you have cards such as the Volcano. The Volcano is a card that, and the only card in the deck, or only type of card in the deck, that will replace a card already out there. Alright, all cards have to be placed into empty spaces with the exception of the Volcano. The Volcano goes down on any space you want and literally destroys everything beneath it. So if you're like me and you end up congregating your pieces on the same area because you've designed yourself a nice good path, so they end up being kind of congregated together, your opponent throws down the Volcano, you just destroyed all your pieces that were there, and they go back to your pool and you'll have to bring them out later. Also, you may have heard me mention earlier, throughout the deck, you have action cards. And there's several different action cards. Here's one of them. This is called Bribery. Now, you basically burn this card in order to take the action listed on it. It says, choose an opponent's unit or a native unit that is adjacent to one of your units. Replace that unit with one of your color. So you just get to kill off one of their units and replace them with one of yours, which is pretty awesome. Here's another action. Convert. It says, convert a unit of your choice. You do not need to burn a terrain card, and the adjacent space you move into does not need a symbol. Here's another card, one of my favorites, the Barbarians. It says, pick any camp space on the board. All units on that space and the 8 adjacent spaces are destroyed. So literally, this is the Barbarians invading. You're going to pick a camp space. Everything around the camp space, including that camp space, is destroyed, including your own units, so you need to be careful. Now, I keep mentioning those native tokens over here. This is the card that allows you to bring those onto play, called natives. It says place a native unit anywhere on the board. Other units cannot move through it. It is affected by cards like any other unit. Example, it can be destroyed, bribed, destroyed by the volcano, etc. So the natives are just a great way to block other units. It's like an immovable barrier. So I may place it here on my opponent, so now he can no longer move through the space. He's going to be stopped right there. And that's pretty much it. That's all there really is to a game of Old World, New World. You're going to be placing your terrain tiles, trying to move your pieces from one end to the other, at the same time destroying your opponent's pieces. And it's going to be a really fast pace. You're going to be having a lot of pieces getting close to the end and then getting destroyed, and then moving them, getting them destroyed, and trying to create new routes around to subvert what your opponent is doing. There you go. Old World, New World. Let's wrap it up. I'll tell you what I think about it. So what do you think about Old World, New World? It's another great game for Victory Point that falls perfectly in that filler criteria. It's short, it's really easy to set up, it's really easy to teach, so it's perfect to put in between a couple games, a couple heavier games. It's great if you just don't have a lot of time, or great if you just want to warm up with some friends before getting into one of those heavy games, etc. It's also a great game for people that aren't major gamers, but you want to introduce them to something a little bit different than Candyland and Monopoly. So Old World, New World, definitely a lot of fun. In that respect. I like the fact that it is very quick. Players are playing up to 2 cards, or are playing 2 cards at a time, so you're going to rifle through the deck relatively quickly, and pieces are going to be moving all over the place. And because this is a heavy screwage type game, you know, it's not like multiplayer solitaire. You just cannot really play this game in that sense and try to move your pieces to the other side of the board and be done with it. I'd say half the moves that you make are going to be trying to screw with the other players. And it's so funny, you can get your pieces so close to the other side of the board, and all of a sudden somebody plays a card or whatever, and your pieces come flying off. Or if you're dumb like me and congregate your pieces on like one tile, because they're all, you know, that's the best way to move them across the board that you've built, then they play the volcano tile, everybody dies. So from that respect, I really enjoy the game. But because it is heavy into that screwage aspect, you want to make sure that you play it with the right people. Some people that may be very frustrating for them. My wife, Lauren, in particular, does not like that. But in general, it's a great game to play with friends. It's a great filler. So I would definitely give a hearty recommendation for Aaron Smith's and Victory Point Games' Old World, New World. Thanks for watching. And make sure to check out my new website at lefthandreviews.com. I have a new micro badge for those who like to do that on BGG. And you can follow me again on Facebook.com and also Twitter.com. Thanks for watching.